Hi, my name is Tariq Hanna, and I am the executive pastry chef and co-owner of Sucre on Magazine Street in beautiful uptown New Orleans. And we are a brand new pastry shop that's just opened up in late spring, and about to show you a few of the secrets that we do back here in the kitchen. Something easy enough for you to do at home and something that you can change through the seasons. So here we go. What we're doing today is we're going to do a very simple apple frangipane tart, but with a little bit of a twist. We are, instead of using regular butter in the filling, we're doing brown butter, which is a fun little process where we make a lot of this here at the shop, where we take the butter and cook it down to where you actually start caramelizing the milk solids, and in doing that it takes on the essence of actually hazelnuts, which is where the French get the term beurre noisette. And it's also commonly used in cooking for like Meunier sauces, and if anybody watched some of the other segments on NOLA.com, you would have seen some of these recipes done. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a very simple pâte sucrée, or a sweet dough or a short dough, used easily for tart shells, for flan shells, sugar cookies. With the holidays coming up, this recipe works very easily. And as I make it, I'll also tell you a little bit of how to interchange some of the ingredients very simply to make it into 20 different things, and when you present these at the parties, you'll be a complete superstar. So we're going to get going on this. I have a ½ pound of unsalted butter, and here at the shop we use an 82% butter fat or butter fat content. One of the things that most recipes will tell you is to start by creaming the butter and the sugar together. But if you notice at the very last line of the recipe, it will tell you let rest for a ½ hour. Because what happens is you'll develop the gluten in the flour, which will tighten the dough up a little bit. But if you happen to be in a hurry, which some of us are, or you're trying to pull off a last minute dessert, as most of us have done, what we will tend to do then is you'll mix the butter with the flour. Because what happens then is the grain of flour, the individual grains of flour, will get coated by the fat, which in turn protect the flour from developing gluten. Which means you can come straight off the mixer, roll it out, make your cookies, make your tart shells, and you just eliminated a ½ hour to do more important things in your life. Although there is nothing more important in your life than making a good tart. So you cream the butter and your sugar just to get it well incorporated. I have 1 egg and a little bit of vanilla extract. The egg used obviously as a binder. Now another key step in making any good dough, or really any recipe, is scraping down halfway through, or as many times as you feel it necessary, so you get complete incorporation of all the ingredients. And get that all back together. And you don't want this to go for any extended period of time. You just want to get it to where it's a nice smooth paste. That's done. What I do from here is I'll add the flour, and we're actually using cake flour for this. And a lot of recipes might call for all-purpose flour, and that's when you really need to concern yourself about the development of gluten. Cake flour has very, very small amounts of gluten, so it's not as doesn't have the tendencies of tightening up like a standard all-purpose or bread flour will. Now it's getting a sandy consistency, and you just want to get it to where it's all nicely gathered. And there it is. So this, I'm just going to throw in the fridge, let it rest a little. Frangipane. Now, the frangipane starts with a combination of ingredients: powdered sugar and almond flour. Almond flour is just simply very finely milled almonds. And this combination in equal parts is known as TPT, or Tart pour Tart, which is a very common ingredient in French pastry work. that a lot of pastry shops in France will have flour bins. You'll see these massive flour bins, 200, 300 pounds of flour, sugar, or any other dry ingredients. And one of the other ingredients that they always have on hand is TPT. Add my eggs to this, cream this until it's very, very smooth. And the beauty of this recipe is you can use it immediately. It's going. We add a small amount of brown butter. Okay, it's about 40% of the weight of the entire recipe. Not only is it used for all the necessary qualities that butter brings to you, which is good health and longevity, but the browning of the butter gives you a beautiful nutty flavor. Now, if you're not looking for that, you want a basic frangipane, then maybe you're going to make some almond cookies, or you're going to, be very adventurous and make your own almond croissants at home, which one day we might show you how to make. This is a very simple recipe that you would use. For that, you would just use soft butter. I partially melted some of this, softening the rest of it. This goes in. And actually I'll show you this. You can see all the butter solids that have caramelized and have browned up. And that's where the beauty of the flavor comes from. And then you slowly incorporate that. Remembering to scrape down. And again, this is also one of those recipes that you could very easily make up ahead of time. Put it in your fridge, put it in your freezer. You can spread it, you can pipe it, however you choose to apply it. And then I have a small amount of all-purpose flour here. And what the flour really does, it essentially helps in the baking process, helps the growth, and helps keeping the product together. And just bring this together, make sure you have a nice smooth paste. And there you have it. One of the versatilities, as I said, about the frangipane, and much the same as the dough, is you can interchange the nuts. If you want to add some liqueur to this, you can add a couple of ounces to this recipe. If you're doing a hazelnut, add some frangelico, or almonds amaretto, or pecans, some of the beautiful local pecan liqueur that we use here at Sucre for some of the chocolates. So what we're going to do now is we have the frangipane done. I already have a piece of short dough, and this is just the standard vanilla short dough. We do many variations of this where we'll take maybe some ground hazelnuts and we will incorporate that into the short dough. And then there's also another little trick that I should probably let you know about, and that's if you want to make a chocolate dough. Well, there's a simple rule of thumb that you use with really any pastes or dough items, whether it's a bread dough or a cake batter or a cookie dough. If you're trying to take a vanilla recipe and transfer it into a chocolate recipe, you very simply replace 10% of the flour content with cocoa powder. It will give you enough of the flavor for the chocolate, and it will give you enough binding ability so where you do not lose the actual integrity of the body of the product. Because the last thing we want to do is spend all this time dreaming up this beautiful dessert and come to find that it doesn't hold together. What I've done is I just gently kneaded this to get some of the air pockets out. A little bit of flour on a Silpat, non-stick silicone mat. Gently roll this out. So then from here I'll just cut out the circle, slightly larger than the mold that I'm using. If your dough's chilled, it'll be very easy to handle. Otherwise, scrape it off with the Silpat. and just start working it into your ring mold. And all we're using are these stainless steel flan rings that you can find at really any kitchen supply shop or your local Williams and Sonoma, Savvy Gourmet, anything, any place that sells any kitchen equipment. And then trim the edge. The only thing you really want to make sure is that you're pressed right into the corners, so you end up with a really nice, clean, sharp corner. Make sure your oven is preheated to 350 degrees, or if you're baking in a convection oven, you could turn it down to about 325, because the convection ovens tend to run about anywhere from 30 to 50 degrees hotter than a conventional oven. Now, one of the key things that in cooking, in baking, if you're sauteing or if you're putting something in the oven, always preheat the oven, preheat the pan, because the one thing you never want to do is put product in a cold oven, because by the time the oven starts heating up, you could melt all the fat, you could lose the form, and you end up with a not so pleasant product. If the oven is at temperature, you can always guarantee that what you put in the oven is what you'll get out of the oven. It won't get better, it won't fix itself in the oven, but it will bake up exactly as you want. This is going to go in the oven for 350. So after about 7 or 8 minutes in the oven, you're just going to start baking the tart shell. And you don't want to bake it all the way, because we're going to turn around and fill it with this beautiful frangipane that we've made, top it with the apples, toss in some cinnamon sugar, and it's going back in the oven. So the one thing you really don't want to do is over bake it so you don't burn the shell on the second bake. I actually have 3 of them here, and I notice a very slight difference between the 3 shells. This is where you would want to be for this purpose, and this is a fully baked shell that we would use for, let's say, a fruit tart or something of that nature that would be presented cold and didn't have to be rebaked. So you can see that there's somewhat a fine line in color as to what you're looking for whatever purpose you're trying to achieve. So now for that little trick I was talking to you about, how to get a nice, clean, professional looking edge. Sandpaper. You get a fine grade sandpaper from your local hardware store. It's not a fancy tool. Take your tart shell. Now, please don't use sandpaper out of Dad's garage, because chances are it probably does have sawdust on it. You want your own sheet of sandpaper. And I promise you this was never used for anything other than cookie dough. And you can see the nice clean edges. So when you present this to all your guests, the first thing they're going to ask you is, where did you buy these? Taking a little bit of the frangipane. You don't necessarily have to pipe it in. You don't have to make it exceptionally smooth. All you want to do is just fill it into the corners, because you're going to end up topping this with the apples. Don't fill it up too much, because this is going to expand a little bit. So split the apple in half, split the apple into quarters, take the core out, 1/4-inch slices. Reserve the rest. I have a cup of sugar with about a tablespoon of cinnamon. I toss the apple slices and some cinnamon sugar, is it just gives a little more depth and dimension to the flavor of the finished product. Build it up as high as you want. If you want to slice these thinner, if you want to dice them. Now from here, this is going to go into the oven, and when we come back, we're going to plate up our beautifully baked apple frangipane tart. Okay, so our tart has just come out of the oven. It's been in there for about 15 minutes. The Frangipane is beautifully baked and set. The apples have roasted. And now, very simply, how we like to present this is simply plate it up. I have a little bit of caramel sauce here that we make in-house. Just very simply melt your sugar, or actually caramelize your sugar. A little bit of cream, a little bit of butter. And you haven't realized by now that the recurring theme of this is butter. Just put a little bit down on the plate. Drag your spoon through it. And since we have decided that the theme of today's demonstration is butter, what better accompaniment to this than some brown butter pecan ice cream? Put this directly on top. And a little tag, and there you have it. Brown butter Frangipane apple tart. And again, my name is Tariq Hanna from Sucre at 3025 Magazine in beautiful Uptown. Please come see us and try items like this, or about 120 different items that I'm sure will suit your fancy.